Welcome to the show. And straight up, I feel ashamed. I'm so ashamed as an Australian. This official report today into Australian war crimes in Afghanistan, alleged war crimes, is even worse and more shocking than I feared. And let nobody pretend the shame does not belong to this nation. And let's not be too quick here with the yes, but. These are our worst war crimes in living memory, and they will change our image of who we are and what we represent. Here is the head of the Defence Force, Angus Campbell, summing up the findings of a 4-year investigation by Major General Justice Paul BRADEN.
He found there to be credible information to substantiate 23 incidents of alleged unlawful killing of 39 people by 25 Australian Special Forces personnel, predominantly from the Special Air Service Regiment. Those alleged to have been unlawfully killed were all people under control, in lay terms prisoners, farmers or other civilians. This shameful record includes alleged instances in which new patrol members were coerced to shoot a prisoner in order to achieve that soldier's first kill in an appalling practice known as blooding. Further to this, throwdown weapons and radios were also reportedly planted to support claims that people killed were enemy killed in action.
So 25 of our soldiers killed, allegedly, 39 people in cold blood. And this report suggests, hence, that he did it with senior officers covering up or looking away.
Troop, squadron and commanding officers of some Special Operations Task Group rotations indirectly contributed to alleged criminal behaviour. This occurred in a number of ways, but particularly by accepting deviations from professional standards, by sanitising or embellishing reporting to avoid attracting attention, and by not challenging or verifying accounts given by those on the ground.
Now, before I go on, I want to show you two of several examples I have, courtesy of a terrific ABC investigation, of the kind of alleged crimes and cover-ups we're talking about. Because there's too much anxiety now about trying to minimise what's happened. We're not talking about soldiers in the heat of battle making a mistake. That happens, that must be forgiven. The report makes clear this is not what we're talking about. This is something we cannot excuse without losing our soul, our self-respect, our reputation overseas. Example 1, a very brave whistleblower, former SAS soldier BRADEN CHAPMAN, told about our soldiers killing an elderly Afghan, Haji Sada, who was wounded and captured during a raid in Afghanistan that CHAPMAN was on, a killing here that had an Australian investigation later claim it was justified, claim this was actually of an armed combatant. A later Afghan investigation called it murder.
BRADEN CHAPMAN was on the Sarkoom raid. He's the only Australian witness to speak publicly about what happened. BRADEN CHAPMAN came upon Haji Sada after the Afghan had been shot and was being treated by an SAS medic. He then saw the wounded man being taken away by an SAS operator, who we'll call Soldier B.
Where was he shot?
Through the leg, but it wasn't life-threatening. The senior soldier walked over, grabbed the Afghani, and then moved him off down an alleyway.
Villagers have told Four Corners that they heard Haji Sada crying out and later found him dead with severe bruising around the chest. The Afghan investigation found he'd been beaten to death.
Let me show you another example of the kind of killings we are talking about. This one too was investigated by our army at the time and called justified, in self-defence. It shows a killing in Afghanistan in 2012 of an unarmed man during a search for a Taliban bomber. The killing by SAS soldiers who were accompanied by their dog, Quake.
At the field, the dog handler and Soldier C come across a young man amongst the wheat who's trying to fight off Quake.
Quake! Leave!
No weapon or radio can be seen. The Afghan is compliant and quiet on the ground.
I don't know, mate. Drop this! Quake, no! Quake, stop!
3 shots from close range. The Afghan is dead.
This report today, heavily censored, names of soldiers removed, tells of 39 Afghans killed in circumstances similar to that, shot or beaten to death when unarmed or captured or innocent. And you ask, how could this have happened? And according to the head of the army, it started with, well, they are Defence Force, it started with some very charismatic and experienced soldiers on patrol with their acolytes, soldiers ignoring the traditions of their regiment and building their own so-called warrior culture, with senior officers not doing enough to hold them back.
It's alleged that some patrols took the law into their own hands. Rules were broken, stories concocted, lies told, and prisoners killed. And once that rule was broken, so too, for some, was any further restraint.
Now, the Defence Force chief apologised to Afghanistan, which had accepted our soldiers in order to protect its people, not slaughter them.
I sincerely and unreservedly apologise for any wrongdoing by Australian soldiers.
Now, for us, the challenge is to say we are not defined by these 25 soldiers and their crimes. We are defined instead by how we respond to them. We did not ask for such crimes to be committed, and we reject and punish those who committed them. And in the same way, we must not let our army be defined by these soldiers and by the officers who let them run amok. We must honour those soldiers who came forward instead and gave evidence. The soldiers who refused to accept the killings done by others in their platoons or their regiment. Here is helmet camera video of 2 soldiers in Afghanistan discussing how shocked they are by killings that witnessed or heard of.
I'm not happy with it. As a brother, it's just, it's what I want. Bash what I want, shoot it to whoever. Yeah. Get a kid, oh well, just keep shooting.
Yeah, exactly.
Bash more.
Shoot a kid.
Execute someone in front of
Support stuff.
I'll do it in front of anyone but an operator.
You can't do it in front of anyone. You don't do it in front of anyone.
It's so wrong. On so many levels. No, we're definitely not trying to win the war anymore.
No, when some of our soldiers were shooting civilians and unarmed men, they were not trying to win the war anymore. They were not trying to keep Afghans safe. So they betrayed not just Afghans, but their country. They betrayed the mission we had sent them to do. Now, we must remember that 26,000 Australians served in uniform in Afghanistan. And this report recommends criminal proceedings against just 19 of those 26,000. And it has been able to do that because other soldiers did come forward with evidence. And the Prime Minister was keen not to tar all soldiers with the crimes of these men.
I think that the high esteem in which we hold our Defence Forces is earned. It has been earned over more than a century, and that stands and firmly. And it stands for a number of reasons. The first of which is the obvious great acts of our Defence Forces over many, many years, and their selflessness and their service, and the choice that is made by serving men and women to pull on that uniform and to serve their country in the way they do. From that moment on, they have earned our respect and their conduct beyond that.
The 25 soldiers accused, 19 recommended for criminal investigation, that is still a lot. And it takes a culture for so many to go so rogue and for the cover-up and for it to take years for these crimes to be exposed. Now, these soldiers, so far not publicly named, could now face criminal charges after further investigation. But there must be an accounting all the way up to the top of our armed forces. Who knew? Who should have known? Who stood by and did nothing? And who put those soldiers in situations where the worst instincts of the worst took control? Now, this is such a blow to how we see ourselves. We can't keep assuming, as we've done for generations, that Australian soldiers are different, that they always fight clean, that all of them can be trusted, unlike those Americans or whatever. These were our soldiers. They are our shame. And it's our responsibility now to make sure the world knows that we reject what was done. These crimes were not in our name. We do not and will not excuse them. We do not deny them. We do not now look away from them. We reject them and will reject all who committed them.